Welcome everyone in this new video on Figma. Today we're going to look at the other very useful plugins and especially at how to make masks for images and text. We always find ourselves in the top center bar, but this time we use the last icon, use as a mask. Masks are used to show specific areas of objects and hide the rest. It is like putting a photograph in a frame larger than it. You will see part of the photograph through the aperture, while the rest is hidden without the need to reduce the size. Since in this process no part of the mask layers is changed or removed, masks are a non-destructive action. This allows hidden areas to be preserved without having to crop them to fit. So how do masks work? Any layer can be used as a mask, including vector shapes, text layers, images with transparency, channels, groups, and more. Let's try it with a shape and an image from the Unsplash plugin. Unsplash is a well-known free high-resolution image site with an open-source license. Of course, there are also other plugins to insert photos, as you see, but now let's use this one. It tells us running Unsplash, and when we get this panel, we can choose a photo from here, or by going to Presets. From here at the top, where we have a categorization of the photos that makes it easier for us to search, or again, next to it, we have the search option to go even more specific. For example, now we can choose this one here and create an ellipse next by pressing the keyboard shortcut O. To create the mask, the ellipse has to be underneath relative to the image. So in general, if we pick up on the similarity from before, it's natural for us to think that the final shape will be given by the inside of the frame that we put underneath our photo. So now we have to select both elements and click on Create Mask. You see how only the part precisely above the ellipse is visible, but still we can then go and move and resize it to adjust as our liking. Inside one mask, there can also be other elements, such as other picture and other frame and other shape. Let's try adding, for example, half a square inside this ellipse above the image, and remember that we can always adjust from here on the panel on the left the position and hierarchies of our elements. When using a layer as a mask, we see that a mask object is created here on the left, in fact, including the object that masks and all the layers that are masked by it, and with an up arrow along the layers in order. We see that we can edit this ellipse that acts like a mask in the editor mode, even after we've inserted images or other elements. So maybe we go and add 2 more points and move them around a little bit. Of course, I'm doing this very quickly now, so to show the option that we have. The same we can do by first creating a shape with the pen tool, then we click P and make a shape of our liking. If it has a specific purpose, of course, it takes more time and effort to do it. I'll show you a little option that we didn't see in the last video. So we create a set of Bezier curves, and then from the editor mode, we select all the active points, and holding down Alt or Option, we move the copy we made, and at this point we go to the main menu, and under Object we find here Flip Horizontally, which allows us precisely to mirror the object that we selected along the horizontal axis, while of course the other option does it with respect to the vertical axis. Now we can go and close this shape as we want with 2 more pen strokes, and then we have to make sure that we fill the shape, because otherwise the mask won't work. So let's take another image and do the same process again. A really useful other plugin that actually can replace creating shapes with the pen tool if we don't have a very high level of accuracy yet, or just to do it faster, it's called Shaper, which we always search from here on top. We launch it by pressing Running, and once it's open, you can see how many options we already have built in, from basic shapes to the fancy category, blobs, which are these amorphous and like gelatinous elements, marks, unclosed line, and all the trendy shapes. While among the other plugins, we still have a lot with 3-dimensional shapes that I'll let you discover from yourself, and maybe we'll pick up on them later in the next videos. While another very nice one is blobs. Let's always look for it, and precisely it makes us adjust blobs by being able to adjust two parameters, the complexity and the peculiarity of the shape, with the preview next to it. Of course, this blob can also act as a mask, but now I want to show you a different way. So first we will need an image on Unsplash of a person. For example, I will choose this one, and an additional plugin called Icon 8 Background Remover, which is the best I've found. No need to subscribe to any online or payment site to remove the background of images. With a clear distinction between main subjects and background, it works very well, so we use it on this image and we see a good result in a really short time. While in cases of very intricate backgrounds, we encounter some problems. An example I can give you is this image here, where as you see, the background is a wall composed of colored graffiti, and once we launch the plugin, we see that some element of background remains. And so in these delicate cases, it would be better to use another more precise and adjustable software like Photoshop. Anyway, back to the image, we came out well. If we try to make a mask between these two elements, now we see it comes like this. But we want to achieve another goal, which is this one. That is seen very rightly now. Notice that the base of our subject falls within the blob, so it is masked, while the top end, the head, comes out with an almost three-dimensional effect. First, we select both the figure and the blob and duplicate them with Ctrl-D so that they will be pasted in the same position right at the originals. Now we create a mask between the two elements in the middle of the list, like this, and finally we take the first element of the subject of the picture, and by holding down Ctrl or Command, we can cut the picture that is on top until it goes underneath to hide in the mask part. And here we are. We can then also put a picture in place of the solid continuous feel of our blob, as we saw a few lessons ago, but we will have to do that for both copies. So Figma has a very simple and clean interface, but at the same time it is immense precisely because of the amount of plugins that can be used within it. We see now here on the panel on the right that we have three types of masks. The first is alpha, because all Figma masks support alpha channels, which we have already described in the third lesson, and represents the degree of transparency or opacity of a color, image, or object. This means we can use blurs and opacity in our masks and import existing PNG, GIF, and web files with transparency, thus alpha channels, and we can use layer blur effects, apply external shadows, add fills, strokes, and gradients with varying opacity. You see how we have this particular effect where the outline would actually be nothing more than the continuum of our image beyond the edges we had defined. We can quickly try also to make an outer shadow and lower the transparency, and you see that we get this other effect here to use always, however, consciously and not casually in our creations. Let's move on to the second type now, the vector mask. Vector masks ignore the translucency or opacity value above 0% of the fill or stroke of a mask. If a mask contains an area with an opacity greater than 0%, its outlines are used as a mask and the whole takes an opacity of 100%. Let's try again to put the PNG image of the horse that we have used in past lessons. There is therefore transparent beyond the outline of the horse itself. If we then put an image over it and click on mask, you see that with alpha, the transparency of the background is recognized and only the horse is filled in. Whereas if we select vector, the rectangular outlines of the image are recognized as a mask. The third option is luminance, which allows you to use brightness to determine a mask. The darker the area, the less it is revealed. If a mask has a black fill, it will not reveal anything, and the masked layers will be rendered at 0 opacity. So in an image with white elements will turn out dark and dark grays will turn out light. Let's also see another way to take advantage of the blending between the two layers of the mask and the masked object. So for example, let's take this image of two penguins that I'm going to remove the background from with the same plugin that we talked about earlier. And one thing that I haven't explicitly told you before, I can rename in the list on the left my elements. So I'm going to call this image penguin 1, and then I'm going to duplicate it again with Ctrl D, and I'm going to write penguin 2. At this point, I'm going to add an abstract image from Unsplash always and put it between the two penguin layers. I create a mask between the bottom two layers, and if you see, if I go to remove the top one, I have the usual mask effect. Whereas if we bring things back the way they were before, and then I go from here to the right panel with penguin 2 layer, select it, and on fill, I then go to this drop down here of the blend mode. We have so many options to choose from, determine how the pixels or the contents of a layer blend with the pixel of the layer below. It is verbose to explain here how all the individual items in the list work, but if you are curious to understand them better, I invite you to investigate them further on the internet. Masks and masked layers, we have seen, move and resize independently of each other. This means that when you move or resize a mask, the mask layers are not affected and vice versa. Whereas, to stop using an object as a mask, simply pick up the element underneath, which acts as a mask, and re-click on the same button as before, this one here, and the portion hidden by the mask will reappear. Know that by default, Figma does not show masks outline, but you can use masks outlines when working with complex masks or to check for unintentional gaps. To activate them, just open the Figma menu, go to View, Mask Outlines, and once the setting is activated, the masks in the file are aligned in green, as we can observe here. Finally, let's quickly see how to create a mask without text and an image, although it's really always the same process. So let's write a text and make it large and bold. Then we insert in frame an image from Unsplash, for example this one, and the text has to be brought underneath it. So then we can click on Use as Mask here, and you see we have the effect we wanted. To have borders to our text, we don't have to add a stroke from here, because as we have said already, in this case it's just going to increase the openness of the frame through which we see our image underneath. What we need to do again is duplicate our text at the beginning and place this copy above the mask, and then remove the fill and add an outline, like this. Well, I would say that's it for this video. Later on we will also learn how to make interactive masks, but time. Thanks for watching so far. If you found the video interesting, please leave a like and a comment. For any doubt or suggestions, subscribe to the channel, and if you feel like supporting us, you can also join as a supporter to always help us create new content, and we'll see you in the next video.